Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Stay fresh fed. The vibes here. Chill as I got something at Target today. Something that I shockingly don't own yet. An apron. Can you believe that I don't own an apron? That's a crime. I now officially own an apron. I have become obsessed with beef stew. I went to Walgreens a few weeks ago and I ended up in the soup aisle somehow, and suddenly I was like, I feel like I want to buy a canned beef stew. It wasn't good, of course. Then I became obsessed with the idea of making beef stew. Last week I made my first beef stew ever. It turned out amazing. I would give it a 7.8 out of 10. It was delicious for a first time, but I do have some modifications. I am going to make it again today. I'm going to show you how to make this beef stew, and it is a paleo beef stew, but you can easily make it non-paleo by using actual flour and adding in any ingredients that maybe aren't paleo. I hope that if you make it that you love it. Let's get started. I'll give you some tips and tricks along the way in order to ensure that your beef stew comes out amazing. Hey guys, so I have rounded up all of my ingredients. I don't always do this, but since this recipe has a lot of ingredients, it has over 18 ingredients, I do want to be organized. That way when I actually start to cook, the process will be so much more seamless, and I don't want to be running around my kitchen like a little psychotic hamster looking for ingredients. I don't want to sound pretentious, but this does have a term. It's French, I don't know how to say it, so I'm gonna butcher it, but it's called mise. I probably butchered that and just offended all of France. It's a French culinary phrase that essentially just means getting your shit together in the kitchen, putting everything in its place, organizing yourself before you start to cook. That way when you start to cook, you're just like smooth sailing. Another tip I have is I feel like stews and soups are pretty flexible. You can put in whatever veggies you want. If you don't like parsnips, don't put in parsnips. If you don't like potatoes, don't put in potatoes. If you love zucchinis, throw in some zucchinis. It's your adventure. But there are a few ingredients that if you don't have, I wouldn't skip out on, just because then they will affect the integrity of your stew, and you don't want to do all this work just to have a stew that doesn't taste that good. The vegetables that you for sure need to have are celery, onion, and carrot. This is another French term. Here I come again. I'm on my French shit. I don't know how to say it. I'm gonna offend all of France again. I'm gonna have my girl Siri say it for me.
Mirepiux. Mirepiux.
Mirepiux. Mirepiux. I'm French now. Take me to Paris. The celery, onion, and carrots form a mirepiux, and that's just basically a flavor base for soups and stews. That's what's gonna give your soup a really deep, rich, delicious flavor. You need those homies together. Another tip for what not to skip out on, I would say don't skip out on your cocoa aminos. Since this is paleo, it calls for cocoa aminos. You can use soy sauce instead, it's fine. And then I definitely would not skip out on the tomato paste. Tomato paste is concentrated tomatoes, so it's gonna give your stew a very deep and rich umami flavor. Well, these two are very responsible for what's gonna give your stew that umami, deep, rich flavor. So make sure you definitely have this on hand. For the meat, I'm gonna season that with salt. I got some sirloin beef tips because I like that kind of meat. You can also do chuck roast or stew meat as well. Thank you so much for your patience and listening to my tips. It's time to make our beef stew. So the way I make the meat is I brown it first in a cast iron pan separately. The reason that I do this is because when I did it in the Dutch oven the first time, it more so steamed the meat. So I didn't get that nice caramelization and that char of the meat that adds so much flavor. I'm cooking it over medium-high heat and letting it brown on both sides. And while the meat is cooking, I started cooking my mirepiux. And then at that point you can add in your garlic. And once your meat and mushrooms are ready, add them back into the pot. And at this point, you'll add in your tomato paste and your flour. Stir that so it coats all of the meat and veggies. And you also want to make sure that you scrape any brown bits that got stuck to the bottom. And then at this point, you'll add in your broth, rosemary, thyme, bay leaves, cocoa aminos or soy sauce, and bring your stew to a boil. And once it starts boiling, reduce the heat to a medium-low heat, and you want to simmer the stew for about minimum 45 minutes, but I'd say an hour is best. Cover it and let it simmer, and then at the hour mark is where you'll add in your vegetables, adding my turnips and potatoes, and I'm going to simmer this for another 45 minutes. And then once your stew is ready, you can garnish it with some fresh parsley or thyme right before serving. This stew is honestly it's a hug for your soul. I love it so much. I'm obsessed with beef stew. This is all I know, and it's all I want to know. I hope that you make it, and if you do, I hope that you love it. That is it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe because it really supports my channel. Stay safe, stay out of trouble, eat your vegetables, and make beef stew. I love you, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.